So let's get started modeling the drone. To do that, open the reference_planes.blend file that comes with the tutorial. In here, you can see we have our scene collection that contains a drone collection and a reference planes collection. The drone collection only contains a point light, and this is the collection where we will create our mesh objects in. The reference planes collection contains all the reference images. You can cycle through the different sub-collections in the reference planes collection by control left-clicking on the monitor icon over here. And that basically hides everything but the selected group. And then you can see we have our grenade, we have the legs exploded, we have the legs themselves, and we have the body. So this is really useful because we can basically toggle different groups on or on. Now, to control visibility, there's two different ways to do that. There's basically global visibility, which is controlled by the monitor icon, and then there is temporary visibility, which is controlled by the eye icon. So how does this work? If I turn on global visibility for all of these groups, I can go in here and, for example, press H on the body group, press H on the leg group, and press H on the legs exploded. And now all that's left is the grenade group. And then if I press Alt H over here, it brings back all of the other groups. Keep in mind that the hotkeys only work when you are over here in this area. It won't do anything when you have something selected over here, but then try to press the hotkey in this area. So in most cases, it's not super useful to bring all of the subgroups back when you unhide everything, because as you can see, these reference planes are actually overlapping and it's just creating a mess in the viewport. So what we want to do in most cases is we just want to focus on one part of the mech. So let's say we want to work on the body. What we're going to do is we're going to turn off the global visibility for all the other groups. And now only the body is visible. And then we can go in here and press H to hide the body group. And if we press Alt H, it only brings back the body group, which is the group that has the monitor icon enabled. If we turn on the monitor icon for the legs and then hide the legs group, and then press Alt H, you can see it brings back both the body group and the legs group. So whatever has the monitor icon enabled will be what is being brought back when you unhide, when you use the unhide all hotkey. So that's how you control the groups. One more thing, there are hotkeys to hide or to toggle the different collections. And for me, that's I think it's Shift 1, yeah, Shift 1 for the first one, Shift 2 for the second one, and so on. So what we're going to do is, let's just create a temp object to demonstrate. So here's a third object, and then we're going to make a new collection, and we're going to call that collection 03. And then it has created the cube in the reference plane collection. So what we're going to do is just left click and drag it into collection 03. And then what we're going to do is, you can see if I press Shift 1, it hides the drone group. If I press Shift 2, it hides the reference plane group. And if I press Shift 3, it hides the collection group. And then if I press Shift 2 again, it brings back the reference plane group, and Shift 1 brings back the drone group, and Shift 3 brings back the collection group. Now, obviously, this is depending on your hotkeys. By default, this I think is assigned to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. But because I changed my hotkeys, these are the ones that I am going to use for these operations. So before we move any further, let's delete that cube and then select the collection 03 and actually right-click and delete. And then we have our clean file again, and we can get started modeling the drone. So the first thing that we want to do is actually create a shader and set up an environment so that we get a bit of a nicer look when we preview our model. And to do that, we are going to subdivide the viewport really quick, and we're going to go to the shader editor over here. And in here, what we're going to do is we're going to set this to world. And then we're going to bring in an HDRI image that we are going to use to light our environment with, or our object with. So what we can do is we can go to hdrihaven.com. And this is a site that offers a ton of free HDRI images. So for example, you can go to the gallery and you can see artwork that has been created using the HDRI images that the site offers. And to download those images, you go to the HDRI section. And then let's look for one that has a strong light source. So this one, for example, has a really bright sunspot. So let's left click on that. And then what we're going to do is we are going to download that. And it doesn't really matter what resolution you are downloading. I mean, ideally, you don't want to go below 4K to get like sharp reflections. So maybe get the 8K image and let that download. And then once it's downloaded, we are going to bring that into Blender. Okay, I'm back in Blender now. And what we're going to do is we're going to press Shift A over here in the shader editor. And then you click on search. And then you type in ENV and then select environment texture. And then what you want to do is you want to open that texture that we have just downloaded. So I've put that in the HDRI folder over here. So just select the HDR file that we have just downloaded, click on open image, and that will load the texture. And then all that's left to do is to connect the color slot to the background. And once you do that, if we switch to the rendered viewport shading, you will see that it's going to use that HDRI image as a background, and it's being loaded. And this is great, but as you know, we are going to use the blend shader, the bevel shader later on, and the bevel shader only works in Cycles Renderer. So if you click over here to render properties, you want to make sure that you switch the render engine to Cycles, just like I've shown you in the introduction video, and then set the device to GPU compute, and you can leave the feature set at supported. And let's set the viewport iterations to 16 for now. And that gives us a pretty decent preview of what our scene is going to look like. So now that we have the environment set up, let's go to the film attributes over here in the render properties setting and turn on transparent. And that will toggle on, back on and off the background. And since we do not want to look at the background all the time or the HDRI image all the time, let's just set this to transparent. Okay, let's select the drone group, Shift A over here in the viewport and add a cube. And then we're going to do Shift H to look at just the cube. And in the shader editor, we are going to switch this back to object, and then create a material for the cube. So Shift Q, assign material, add new material, and we're going to call that bevel medium. And this one we're going to set up very similar to what I've done in the intro chapter of the tutorial. So search for the bevel shader and connect the normal output to the normal input. Crank up the samples to 16 and set the radius to 0.035. And then what we want to do is go to the base color and switch this to 0.5 maybe for all three values in RGB. And we want to set the roughness to 0.1 for now. And that gives us a bevel effect on the edges. And let's actually set the viewport sampling rate back to 32. I think that'll give us a bit of a better rate in general and a better image quality. And then what we can do is switch this back to world and actually decrease the intensity of the background material a little bit. So maybe set this to 0.5 so that it's not super overbearing. And remember, we also still have that point light in here. So if we turn this on and then move this around, so we can press G and actually bring up the snap menu, set this to vertex and snap it over here. And then bring this up, bring this over, bring this to the left, and then give it a second to calculate. We can see that this light is actually contributing to our image and lighting the cube. And it's not super visible yet, but this is good enough for preview purposes. And I'm sure I'm going to modify this the world settings and the material a little bit more later on during the tutorial. So let's just press Alt-H to bring back the reference cubes or the reference planes. And now that we have the material, we can also delete the cube because we don't need that anymore for now. And we can switch back to material preview mode by bringing up the shading pie by holding Z, and then switch to material preview. So there we go. So we now have our material. If we go to Blender file, you can see here's our bevel medium material. Here's our reference plane material. And we can work with that. So let's actually get going. Set this to view layer again. And then let's get started with the actual modeling part. Before I do that though, let me make this one big window again. And then here we go. Let's start. So let's add a cylinder. So Shift A and then cylinder. And then down here are the creation options. And here are the vertices, and we want to set this to a number that's divisible by 3, and we want to make it more round. So all I'm going to do is type in 3 multiplied by 32 and then press enter. That'll set it to 96 and smooth out the cylinder. The reason why I'm doing that is because the mech is going to have, or the robot is going to have 3 legs, and I'm going to focus on modeling a third of the object and then duplicating it around. So I'm saving a bunch of time doing that. Go to left view, and then you can see the radius is not lining up. So hold down Shift to be more precise and just increase or decrease the number here. And maybe 1.05 seems to be a good value. So with that, let's keep going, and let's actually go to face mode, select this face down here, press I for inset, and line up this edge here, and maybe 0.135 is a good number for that. And then we're going to go press E to go to extrude and move this down here. Go to left view, press G, hold down middle mouse button to constrain on the Z-axis and line this up. And in vertex mode, let's actually bring up the tool panel by pressing T. Let's switch to select box X-ray, and let's do the same thing out here as well, so that when we select vertices, it'll automatically select through everything and we don't have to worry about selecting or not selecting back faces. Okay, with that, I think that's a good base. One last thing though, go to vertex mode, select everything, press G, and then just line this up here on the top. And then you can also hold down Shift to be more precise. And once you are in a good spot, just let go and commit. And then we can go to wireframe mode and see, and this is lining up pretty well. All right, there we go. Let's work on the top bevel here. F3 to go out of wireframe, and then we're just gonna, actually let's stay in wireframe and select this top view plane, select this, press Ctrl F to isolate. And then select the top face here, go to top view, press I to isolate, and make sure that we're lining up this edge here. And by holding down Shift, we're going to be more precise. So this looks like a good value. And then what we're going to do, we're going to go into the left view, go to object mode, press Ctrl F to bring my reference planes back. And then Ctrl R to add a edge subdivision, and then move this up and commit. And then we are going to press G, zoom in here, press G, hold down middle mouse button and move the mouse up and down to constrain on the Z axis, and then just line up this edge here. And with that, we can select this edge. So just go to edge mode and then double click on it and press X to delete it. And let's go back to the side view. And then we're going to press Ctrl R to add an edge here, and then left mouse button to commit. And then we're going to press 1 to convert to vertices, and then right mouse button. And we're going to use the shrink fatten command to actually move this out. So let's move this out a little bit, maybe just like this, and see if we can match the curvature. It's actually easier to control it by holding down Shift. And with that, let's press 2 to go into edge mode, and then Ctrl B to bevel. And then move the mouse up and down. And right now from the orthographic view, it doesn't work well. So let's actually undo that and rotate the camera and see if we do it from here. It actually works pretty well. So with that, let's go back to the left view. And then let's set this to 4 segments for now. And we're going to do clamp overlap and just hold down Shift and see if we can get a good offset. And that seems to be pretty good. It seems to match the curvature really well. And next, what we're going to take care of is let's go back to object mode, press F3, And you can see that the distance between the edges, especially on the side here, is not even. So let's fix that. So let's do a shortest path selection between these edges, and then we can go to interactive tools and just do smart ring. And then we're going to right mouse button and we're going to go to loop tools and then just press space. And you can see now the edges are evenly distributed around that bevel. So there we go. That was this bevel here. So let's keep going here. I want to show you a little bug that's in KeyKit at the current version. So if you double click to select an edge and then run a bevel, this all works fine as long as you're using the mouse inputs. However, if you start using the sliders down here, you can see it reverts back to the initially selected edge. So right now this is not working well, and hopefully this will be fixed further down the line. But we can easily prevent that by just holding down Alt and left clicking on an edge to make a loop selection. And then we're going to go to left view, press Ctrl B. And you can see now if we use the sliders, it works pretty well. So just hold down Shift and see if we can match this. Let's type in 0.05 here, and that's all good. So perfect, we've got this edge done. And then let's Control F these two pieces, go to wireframe mode, and then select this face and go to the top view. And just like before, we're going to do an inset by pressing I on the keyboard and sliding this in. And let's try 0.42. There we go. And here is our piece. And then this time Control F to go back up the stack of the hidden objects. Go to left view, and then we're just going to run a bevel this time. So left view, and then Control B, move the mouse left, and then turn on clamp overlay, and then crank this all the way up until it stops because it's clamping. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to add around 10 segments and maybe work on the profile a little bit. So if we hold down Shift, or we don't even need to here, we can just eyeball it. So that seems pretty good. And now let's go out of wireframe view. And what basically happened is down here it has clamped the last edge to our outer edge. So if I scale this, you can see there's a double edge here, but that's fine. We can just go to vertex mode and press 1, do A to select everything, and then press M on the keyboard and merge by distance. And now you can see it removed 96 vertices. So if I now scale this, you can see it's one edge. And then the last thing that we need to do, just like before, is shortest path, select this and do smart ring, right mouse button, loop tools and space. And yeah, they were actually evenly spaced, which is great. And now if we do Control F again, actually, let's just do Alt H to bring back everything. Go to wireframe mode, go to left view. You can see that this matches the curvature really well, and we have our piece in place. So yeah, that's pretty much it for that bevel down there. So let's keep going with this. Go to left view, F3 to go to wireframe mode, 2 to edge mode, and then Control R, and then mouse wheel up to add 2 subdivisions on the edge. Left mouse button and left mouse button again to commit. And then let's go to edge mode or to vertex mode, and then middle mouse button and drag the mouse up and down to constrain to the Z-axis. And let's line up these edges with our reference plane. There we go. And then 3 to go to face mode, hold down Alt, click on the neighboring edge, and that does a edge loop, or an edge ring actually, on faces. And then Alt E to extrude faces along normals. And then just move the mouse down and hold down Shift and line up this edge over here. And maybe try 0.1025 or something like that. And then zoom out a little bit, and now all that's left to do is select the inner edges, press G again, move this up, and then let's do the same here. Select these edges, G, middle mouse button, move down, there we go. And then let's actually press F3 to go out of wireframe mode, and then we're just going to do Shift H to hide everything but the selection, and then Shift Q, assign material, and we're going to assign our bevel material, and then right mouse button, shade smooth, and go down here, go to normals, turn on auto smooth for now, and let's do a quick preview of the cycles renderer and see the bevel shader in action. So hold down Y, go to render it, And unfortunately, this is going to take a while to render, or a little bit to render. It should be faster on your machine, depending on what GPU you have. But since I'm recording, it's actually a little bit slow. But you can see we're getting a nice bevel effect up here. And yeah, it's starting to like smooth out all these hard edges that we're having. Don't worry about these artifacts that we're getting here. This will not show up later on when we bake it anymore. But yeah, it's looking good, and it's a good start. So let's go back to Solid, Alt-H to hide everything, sorry, to bring everything back. And then let's actually go to Material Preview instead. And with this, let's keep modeling. So let's separate the individual pieces so that we have an interior and an exterior, as well as a top and a bottom piece. So first we're going to start with the base piece here. So select the face, Control Q to grow selection. And if we open up the drawn collection, you can see we have the point light and the one cylinder object. And then what we're going to do is press P to bring up the separate menu and separate by selection. And this creates a new object. So if we select this bottom object, you can see we have our cylinder and the cylinder 01. So we have two objects now. And then next we're going to select the cylinder here, Shift H to hide everything but the selection, left click on this face, and then Alt on the edge to do ring selection, and then Control Q to grow selection, and then same thing, press P and separate by selection. And as you can see, it separated it into its own piece. So there we go. Let's do a loop selection down here, press E to bring up extrude mode, and then hold down middle mouse button and move the mouse up and down to constrain on the Z axis, and then go to left view, turn on X-ray, go to vertex mode, select all of these, Alt-A to bring up the align menu and align to bottom. Go back to perspective view, and then we're gonna select these two edge loops, and we're gonna fill in the polygons here. So just right click, fill, and make sure that beauty is turned on. If it's not, you can see you're getting some arrows. And now we want to turn the triangles here into quads. So go to face mode by pressing 3 on the keyboard, right mouse button, and then twist to quads. And as you can see, we have nice clean geometry. So what we want to do next is bring everything back. And then we want to add some thickness to this upper piece as well. And we want this line here to be the same thickness as the bottom line. So what we're going to do is we're just going to duplicate these faces here. So let's select them. And then what we're going to do is Alt and left click on the edge to do a loop selection, and then Shift D to duplicate. So you can see we now have a duplicate of those faces. And if we just press right mouse button, it will duplicate in place. So let's do that. And then we can press P to separate by selection. And now you can see we have the space object here. Let me undo, and we have the top object here, and there we go. Now we need the normals to go in a different direction. Right now they're pointing upwards, and we can visualize that by pressing Shift and then mouse button 4, and then turn on face orientation. So you can see they're facing upwards right now, and we want them to face downwards. So let's go to face mode, select everything, press Alt-N, and then do flip. And now you can see it has flipped the normals, and then we can turn off the face orientation overlay again. Alt-H to bring everything back, and then we're going to hide this guy, select these two pieces, Shift-H, Control-J to join them. And then all we need to do is make sure that we merge these vertices here. So go to vertex mode, A to select everything, M to bring up the merge menu by distance, select a low threshold, and you can see it removed 96 vertices, and we should be good. And then last step is to just extrude this inwards, and then right mouse button N to create a new face. And now we have middle, top, and bottom, and we've separated it into 3 pieces. And we can actually go here and actually do the same thing, create a new face, and then maybe select this and just extrude this upwards for now so that it has some thickness to it. So there we go. So let's keep going with this, and let's do Shift-2 to hide the reference images, and Shift-H to just select this guy, and we want to work more on the interior here. So Alt left click to select the edge loop, right mouse button and N to create a new face, and then P and select selection to separate that face. Then we're going to press G to move it up, and now Control Alt S to bring up the snapping menu, make sure vertex is turned on. and then we can just press G, middle mouse button to constrain on the Y-axis, on the Z-axis, and then hold down Control and snap to one of these vertices. Okay, and then let's give this some thickness. So press I, move it inwards, and maybe use 0.0625 for this. And then we're going to do 2 extrusions. So press E, move the mouse down, and then let's use negative 0.298 for the first one, and then do another extrusion and use negative 0.69 for the second one. And let's actually take a look at what this looks like rendered at the moment. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to actually just switch to the rendered mode. And then you can see it takes a while to actually render the image. And we can see we're getting a nice bevel here. And we're not getting a bevel on the inside of this guy yet because we didn't extrude these faces down. So let's do that next. But before we do that, let's make sure we have the renderer set up correctly. So go to Edit and Preferences, and then go to System, and in Cycles Render Devices, make sure you've set this to CUDA if you have an NVIDIA graphics card or a CUDA capable graphics card, and turn on your graphics card and your CPU. And in here, set this to cycles, supported in GPU compute. That should make it a bit slower, a bit faster, sorry. And then let's go back to Material Preview. I've just hidden everything but this object. And then what we're going to do is just extrude this down. And then if we go back to rendered view, you can see we should get a nice bevel on the outside edge and on the inside edge. Yeah, there we go. Bevel here, whereas before we only had a bevel on the inside. So that's good. Let's go back to Material Preview. Let's do Alt-H to bring back the rest. And let's actually hide the top and the bottom again. And then just Shift-2 to bring back the reference planes. And then we want to take a look at this, and then Control-F to hide. Or to isolate, and then go to top view, turn on wireframe, select this face in the center and do an inset. And then with Shift, we can basically move this in and out, and let's see if we can find a value that works. And this seems to be good. So we've aligned everything up. Control F to bring everything back, and then there we go. This should be good. So Alt-H to unhide everything, and then we can keep working. So let's keep going on this. Shift-2 to hide the references again, turn on wireframe mode, and maybe actually move this edge down even a little bit more, 0.01. And then you can see right now this lower piece is kind of like protruding. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select the top face and delete it for now. It's just going to make it easier to work. And then let's bevel this guy here. So Alt left click on it, Control B to bevel, and then move the mouse left and right. And this time we're going to use different values. We're going to set this to %, and we're going to turn on clamp, and then we're going to set this to 100% and set the segments to 20. And then if we turn off clamp overlay, you can see it's using the entire span, which is great. And then let's just use something like this for the profile. Let's do 0.425. And with that, we can just go in here, go to vertices, and as you can see, we have a double edge here. So I can either delete it or just go to vertices, select all of them, press M, and then do by distance, and there we go. So now we have the curvature here on the inside. Next, what we want to do is take a look at the top piece and do the same thing. All right, same procedure for the top. Shift-D to duplicate, right mouse button to keep in place, P to separate by selection, and then let's take a look at this. Shift-H, turn on face orientation. We want to flip the normals, so 3 to go to face mode, A to select everything, Alt-N to flip the normals, and then we can just select this inner edge by left-clicking on it, and let's actually turn off face orientation. Press E to extrude, move this up, type in 0.72 as a value, and then right mouse button N to create a new face. Alt-H to bring everything back, Shift-2 to bring back the reference images. Let's actually hide this guy, and then select this piece, and select the top piece, and then Control-F to isolate, And then we want to select this edge, extrude it upwards. And then let's go to wireframe mode for this, go to top view, and then face mode, select the center face, or actually let's go to bottom view, it'll render better. And then I to inset, hold down Shift, line these edges up, and then all that's left to do is same procedure as before. Let's turn off wireframe, go to face mode, select this, Control B to bevel, set this to %, set this to 100, make sure clamp overlay is off, and let's use like 13 segments. And then last thing is to get rid of the double edges here. So go to vertex mode, A to select everything, M to merge, and then by distance, and then you can see 192 vertices get removed. And then let's just shade smooth, and also make sure that auto smooth is turned on for this. And then Control F to bring everything back, Shift 2 to hide the reference images, and then we can just start taking a look at what this looks like. So let's go to rendered mode, rendered, here we go. Give it a second to calculate and turn off wireframe, and you can see we're starting to get some nice bevels, which is cool. Go back to material preview, bring everything back. Let's take a look at the bottom stuff really quick. So Shift H, and then here we want to do the same thing, shade smooth on that guy, and then set it to rendered. And we should be getting some nice bevels on top of here as well. Yeah, there we go, looking pretty good. Go back to material preview, bring everything back. And yeah, we make some decent process, and we have the base pieces for the body in at this point. Okay, let's continue with this. So let me bring back the reference images. And let's select these top two pieces and do Control F to hide. And what I want to do is I want to focus on this piece here. So I'm going to create this inset with a Boolean operation. So let's start with a simple box, Shift A, Mesh, and then Cube. And then let's give that a size of 0.8575. And then I'm going to press G to move it forward. And then we are going to turn on wireframe for both of these pieces. And let's go to right view. Actually, let's go to left view. And then here we can see the pieces, and we can see that the small box is lining up nicely with the outside of this. Now I don't want to extrude this straight into the body. I want the side to have a bit of an angle. So we're going to use the shear command. So go to face mode and then right mouse button. And then what we're going to do is look for shear. Actually, we need to be in vertex mode. So select the vertices on the side, right mouse button, and then shear. And then just move the mouse left and right. And then the menu comes up. Change this to global. Set the offset to -0.3. And then switch the axis to Y. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other side. Shear, move the mouse, set this to global, offset to Y, and set this to 0.3 instead of -0.3. And now you can see the sides are a little bit angled. And, you know, they kind of point towards the center. So we don't get this straight line here, but we get a bit of an angled line where these two pieces intersect. Next thing we want to do is go to wireframe mode and go to left view again. And then let's just take these top vertices, press G to go to move mode, hold down middle mouse button, and line up these lines here. And with that done, what we can do is start a Boolean operation. So let me check something first though. Go to top view. This is centered, which is great. So go to item, make sure this is set to 0. And then we can turn back on wireframe mode, and then I'm going to select the big piece and the small piece, and then Control- for the hardops Boolean operation. And then we want to set this to slash, which gives us a piece for the main body, as well as a piece for what's contained here in the center. I do think I did this wrong, so let me undo really quick. So select the small piece first and then the big piece, Control-, and then set it to slash. And now we have two pieces the big piece and the small piece. It's based on your selection and what you select first and what you select second. So make sure you select the small piece first and then the big piece, and then do Ctrl-, and then set the Boolean operation to /. And then now when I move these faces around, you can see that it's cutting through the mesh and it's giving us a nice angle here. Go back to left view, turn on wireframe mode for both of these pieces. And let's go back in and actually line this back up since I just moved it. And then you can see we have a little bit of a bevel up here. So let's add that back in by selecting these two upper edges here. Let me go out of wireframe mode to make this a bit more clear. And then we do Ctrl-B to bevel, move the mouse, and then set this to 0.05 and do about 4 segments. And this is giving us a nice bevel here on the side. And you can see if we turn wireframe mode back on for this cutter piece and go to left view, we are now getting a nice shape that's being cut into the body. And it looks like it's following the outline here pretty well, which is exactly what I wanted. One thing we could do, if we wanted to, we can select these outer vertices, press G, and then with the middle mouse button hold down, we can move it to the right so that we get a little bit closer, and maybe copy this value by pressing Ctrl-C, and then select these other vertices over here, move them arbitrarily, and then paste the value and get rid of the negative value. Press Enter, and now we've moved these pieces the same amount as well. And that should give us roughly, the edges in the right location. So if we zoom out and do F3 here and F3 here, to turn off wireframe mode, we can see we have our cut, and this is looking pretty good. Now, one thing that's still going on right now is the Boolean modifier is applied to both of these pieces here, which I don't necessarily want moving forward. I want to collapse the modifier, so I'm just going to press Q and then add modifier, apply modifier, and you can see the modifier is gone now. And then we're going to do the same here, add modifier and apply modifier, and that removes the modifier. And now this piece is not connected to the Boolean operation any longer. So the last thing we need to do is deal with the rest of the body, and that's what we're going to do next. So before we move forward and add the rest of the piece down here, I want to create 2 different colors for 2 different materials so that we can see the separation between the pieces better. So let me bring up another viewport and then go to the shader editor. And you can see we have our bevel medium material that is white, and we're going to make that blue. So let's rename that to blue up here by just typing it in. And then on the base color, we're going to left click on it, set it to RGB up here, and then use a blue color value. So I'm just typing in values from a color that I have set up previously and that I have liked. So actually this needs another 0. So 026 for R, 061 for G, and 098 for blue. You can obviously use the color picker and choose a different color if you want to, but I did like this one. And then for this piece here, Shift Q to bring up material utilities, and then just click on Add New Material, and we're going to call that bevel medium red, and then click on OK. And you can see it changes over here to bevel medium red when I select that piece. If you select the reference plane, it goes to the reference plane material. And then same procedure, add a bevel material, drag that into the normal slot, crank up the samples, set the radius to 0.035. And for the color of this one, this is going to be the red one. So let's do 0.5 for red, 0.05 for green, and 0.05 for blue. And now we have 2 different materials that we can see in the viewport. And if you do Shift Q, you have access to them in the material utilities as well. So that's a good start, and let's continue. So let's keep going with this, and I want to work on the lower part. So let's press Ctrl F, and let's also get rid of this viewport again. And then you can see we have our cutter collection over here with the cutter objects, which is this one, as well as another cutter. Seems to be something left over from previously. So since I do not need this one, I'm just going to delete it by pressing X. and clean up the scene a little bit. And now what we want to do is basically select that lower piece and do the same operation as up here with this cutter object. So let's just select the cutter object by selecting it. Make sure you only have that object selected. And then select the base object and then Control minus. And then set it to slash again. And as you can see, let's do Control F to hide the objects. As you can see, now this object is being used to cut away from that object. And let me actually go in here, do Shift Q and assign the red material. And with that, you can actually see a little bit better what's going on when we move this around. And for this one, we just want to cut all the way through. And that's already it. We don't really need to do more. So I want to get rid of the Boolean operation here. So Q, add modifier, apply modifier, Q, add modifier, apply modifier, and that gets rid of the modifier. And then we can do Control F again to bring everything back. And now we have these two pieces here, which look really good. And then what I want to do is I actually want to make this into one piece and not have the cut here. So go to vertex mode, Alt A, merge to the top, and then same for the bottom piece, Alt A, merge to the bottom, and then we're gonna select these top faces in face mode and delete them, and select the bottom faces in face mode and delete them. And now all we need to do is join them. So select piece 1 and piece 2, Control J to join, go to vertex mode, select all of these guys, Alt A to top. And then we're going to do Alt M, sorry, not Alt M, but just M, and then merge by distance, and that will merge the overlaying vertices. So let's do that, merge by distance, and you can see it removed 34 vertices down here. We're using a very low distance threshold. And then we can see if we move these are now connected. And then we can just go through and clean up these extra vertices here on the side that are not necessary. And last thing we can do is actually select this edge loop and delete it. And then if we do Alt H to bring back everything, you can see we have, our three pieces here with this piece cut out. So that's what I wanted. And we can keep working on the rest. So let's work on the geometry some more. I want to have a separating piece between this piece and that piece. And if we look at the reference by bringing it back, you can actually see that there's a little bit of a gap. And that's basically a piece that goes all the way around here so that we can have a different color here. So let's get started in creating this. First step is we need to select these two pieces of geo and do some cleanup. If we zoom in, you can see that there's an edge that goes through here and it doesn't really contribute to the silhouette. So I'm just going to clean this. It's going to make using the inset easier. So source vertex, target vertex, and then Alt 1 to target weld. And then the same thing for down here, source, target, Alt 1 to target weld. And now you can see we have to mirror it over or do it on the other side. So we can either do it on the other side or use HardOps Mirror. So Alt X to use HardOps Mirror, and then mirror on the Y-axis by pressing this icon over here, and it's going to mirror this side over to that side. So click, and then now you see we have the HardOps Mirror modifier, and we can just apply that modifier to get rid of it because we don't need it anymore. And then same for the top piece, this over to here. So Alt X, mirror, and then click apply to get rid of it. Let's actually move this up so that we have some more space. So go to vertex mode with the faces selected, select the face vertex up here, Alt A, move to top to align. There we go. Now we have some more space. And then we want to add a subdivision here on that level. So Control R, left mouse button to confirm. Left mouse button to confirm again, then press 1 to convert to vertices, select that one, Alt A, and align to bottom. And now all that's left to do is do a little connect here. So we use the knife tool by pressing K. And once I'm happy with this, left mouse button and then space. And now we need to align this guy. There we go. And we can just do Alt X again, and this time we're going to mirror from here over to here. and then click apply. And then just in case something is not merged, select all the vertices, press M, merge by distance. Looks like everything was fine, which is great. Okay, we did the cleanup, and now we can start on the inset. So let's go to face mode and just select all of these faces here. And then we don't need the top faces, and we also do not need the ones on the side. And then on these selected faces, we want to do an inset. So let's press I to do inset, move the mouse to the left, and then let's just use a value of 0.027. And that should give us a nice inset, which is cool. We're getting some errors in here, but we can easily fix that. So let's actually go in here, delete this edge here. And then it looks like it did not clean up that inner edge here, which is fine. We can just X to delete it, and then select the top vertex and this one and do J to join. And then same for here, we can join this, and maybe do something like that, where we join them up like this. And let's look at the front, see if there's some cleanup necessary here. Yeah, I guess a little bit, something like that. And, just select the pieces and press J on the keyboard to connect them. And then Alt X and mirror. And now I mirrored from the wrong side. So let's undo, do this again. And I gotta press over here to mirror this side over to that side, and then press apply. And there we go. That should give us a good base to work with for now. Let's separate out this geometry. And to do that, we're going to select this and do a ring selection actually. And with this, we're going to do Control Q to grow the selection. And then we still need all of these faces. So go to left view, go to X-ray mode, and then just Shift drag select them, exit X-ray mode, press P to separate and separate by selection. Now we have piece 1, piece 2, and we can do Shift Q on piece 2 and assign the red material. And now you can see there's our lip. Now there's still some cleanup we need to do, so Control F to isolate, go to vertex mode, and here this is pretty nasty, so let's just merge these edges together. And then as you know, we're going to duplicate this section around the object 3 times because we have 96 subdivisions on the circle. So I need to find out where that 30-second edge is so that I know where I'm going to duplicate things. The quick way to do it is to just do a cylinder and set the vertices to 3. And then we're going to go into rotate mode, press Z to constrain on the Z-axis, hold down Control and rotate that 30 degrees. And now you can see this here is our edge. So what I'm going to do is just select these two, Control Q to grow all the way to this edge, and then P to separate by selection. And then I can get rid of this and this. And then if I have this, I can do Shift D to duplicate, press R to go to rotate mode, press C to constrain on the Z axis, hold down Control, and you can see this is perfectly fitting back into a circle. So I only need to focus on this one object and clean this one object. So we need to fill in the faces, obviously. Let's start by doing a selection, and then we can just get rid of this, and we can also get rid of this. And this time we're going to use the interactive tools and Super Smart Create, and then go to face mode by pressing 3, right mouse button, and then we're going to do Tris to Quads. And here you can see it doesn't really do it correctly, so I'm just going to go in here manually and clean it up. And for this here, let's just only select this, and then interactive tools, Super Smart Create, and that doesn't work because it's connected here. So let's do this again. There we go. And then Alt X to mirror it over, Q, add modifier, apply modifier to get rid of the modifier. So there we go. And then what we can do next is just duplicate this around, I guess. But before we do that, let's actually fill this by selecting it and pressing N. Same here. And then these edges, we don't actually have much use for them, so we can just delete them for now. Maybe we'll need them later, I'm not sure, but it's easy to add them back in. And then we can do Shift D, R, Z, hold down Control and move over, Shift D, R, Z, hold down Control and move over. So there we go. Control F to bring back the other pieces. And now basically I have to do the same for this top piece. Shouldn't be that difficult actually, because we know where our face is. So we can just delete these guys. And I guess shortest path selection here. And then on the top, actually, you know what? Let's undo that. And what we're going to do is going to go to left view, select all of these faces. And we are going to P to separate by selection. And we're going to keep the top intact as its own piece for now. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see if we can do Super Smart Create. That doesn't work. How about fill? Fill works, and then right mouse button, go to face mode, right mouse button, and twist to quads. That did a great job. Yep, so that piece is done. And then on this one here, let's actually go in here and then delete these two. And then delete these two, and then we can just do Alt-G to select linked, press X to delete. And then we just need to clean up this geo here, and it's pretty much the same procedure. Here we can see that's our vertex we have to clean up. Good thing is we can focus on just half of the object and then mirror it over. So let's select this. Interactive Tools, Super Smart Create, that worked. Let's do the same here. Interactive Tools, Super Smart Create, go to face mode and then twist to quads. That worked as well. And here, do the same thing. Interactive Tools, Super Smart Create. And over here, we can just right mouse button N to create a new face. And then just Alt X, mirror it over and apply the hard ops modifier. And now we have 1, 2, 3. So let's actually select this piece, Shift D, R, Z, hold down Control, move it over, Shift D, R, Z, hold down Control, and move it over, and then left mouse button to commit, and then Control F to bring everything back. Let's do that again, and then Shift 2 to hide the reference, and we can also duplicate this for now, I guess, but before we're able to do that, we need to clean up the geo down here. Now, with this, it's pretty much the same approach. So we do need to figure out where that edge is. So all we need to do is select this and then grow selection. And as you can see, here's what's going on. So here's where that cut is. So we can just do P, separate by selection. And then what we're going to do to be able to properly mirror it is we're going to press R, Z, hold down Control to move this edge to the center, and then Alt X. And here you can see we can't really mirror it properly because it has an edge rotation applied to its transformations so that it doesn't show up in the correct axis. So let's actually escape to exit. And here you can see here's the rotation. So you can just do Control A and apply rotation, and it will clear the rotation value. And then Alt X, and then mirror this piece over, and then hard ops apply. And then again R, Z, and then just hold down Control and move it back. And now it's in that exact position where it needs to be. So if I bring all the other pieces back, you can see it matches that perfectly. And then all we need to do is Shift D to duplicate, R, Z, put it in place, Shift D to duplicate R, Z, put it in place. Alt-H to bring everything back. Same here, Shift-D-RZ. Move it over, Shift-D-RZ. And just put it in the right position. We could also, we could obviously just do Shift-D-RZ and then just type in 180, I guess. No. Shift-D-RZ 90. Messing up right now, but it's not too bad. Shift-D-RZ 90. No, 120. Yeah, 120. So Shift-D-RZ 120. And that just rotates it 120 degrees. And now that we have that, let's actually go in here, hide the cutter objects, and then we can do a quick rendered preview and check out all the bubbles. Should look pretty decent. Yep, and you can see we're starting to get some nice paneling, some edge breakups, and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's a great base to continue working with. Go back to material preview, can bring back the reference planes, and then just keep working. Let's keep working on the top some more, and just select these two pieces here, Control F to hide them, and then look at this from the top. And then we're going to go into face mode, select these two faces, do an inset to right around here, and then do another inset to right around here, one more inset to about here, and another inset right around to this point. Let's rotate out of this and see what we get. So let's grow selection, and then what we're going to do is move this down to about here, and then let's go here, move this up, and then let's see, go back to top view. Looks like we're missing an edge here, so we can just do Control R, S to scale out, rotate out, F3, F4, and move this up. And now you can actually go in here and move this down just a tad. And then we can go here in the middle and separate these pieces by selection. Extrude this out. Go back to top view. Let's undo that and just do F3 on this guy and on this guy. Go back to top view. And then we're going to do an inset to right about here. And then turn on wireframe again. And let's just move this up. And that should give us a decent base to work with. One of the things I want to do is actually separate this guy here as well. So grow selection P, separate by selection. And then we're going to take this edge here in the center, move this up just a little bit, and extrude to move it down. And let's go back to top view, select the upper edge here, and just do a bevel. Should give us a pretty decent bevel here on the corner, and then we need another loop, kind of like here. So we can just add a few and then get rid of these guys by pressing X that we don't want. And then we're gonna separate this out as well. P to separate selection. And just extrude this down. align. And I guess we can make this one piece if we want to. Let's see. Go to top view. And let's just work on half of this for now. Be easier. Interactive tools, super smart create. Move the pivot here to this place. I accidentally turned on box cutter. That's not what I wanted to do. With the pivot here, just Alt X and mirror it over and then apply the modifier. And there we go. Now this is a little bit too high for me, I think. So let's just move this down a tad. And then let's keep going. The reason why I did this is because I want to get the bevel from the bevel shader here, and without that edge, we're actually not going to get it. So if we turn to rendered mode and give it a second to calculate, you can see we're getting a nice bevel here, which is great. Let's keep working on the shape here. Just move this down a little bit, and same here. Just make the angle a bit more interesting, and then we're gonna extrude this. And then let's actually Control F, top view, and do a bevel here. See if we can match the reference. That's fine, we don't need to type in a number. And then here, do bevel as well. Something like that. And that should make the geometry just a little bit more interesting. Let's see what else we need. We want to extrude this downward just a bit. And maybe for now make this a face. I don't know if this is going to work with the interior underneath, but for now we can just create it and then see what happens. So let's delete this. And we're going to do the super smart create again. So right mouse button, interactive tool, super smart create. And then just mirror this over, and there we go. This can get a little bit deeper as well. And then with this, let's work on these pieces here. So Control F, F3, go to top view. And what we're going to do is we're going to select these two faces. And then Shift D to duplicate, right mouse button to duplicate in place, P to separate, and then separate by selection. And then we can actually hide this guy, select this piece, and let's just select these vertices, Alt A, align to the left, align to the right. And then kill this one in the middle. Let's see what that looks like from the top. Hold S to center pivot. Scale this down a little bit and then scale it on the Z axis. And maybe even a little bit more. And then we can just extrude. Maybe just like that. Do a little inset in the middle. And then select this outer edge by Alt left clicking on it and deleting that face. And then with this face selected, we can just do another extrude so that it has some more thickness to it. And then next we're going to duplicate this around. Let's hide this piece. And what we want to do is we want to duplicate this around the center to create the pattern. The pivot point, which is the orange dot, is currently located at this location, and we want to center it out at 0 so that we're going to use the new pivot point as the center for the rotation. To do that, press Ctrl A, and then in the Apply Transform Spline menu, just click on Apply All, and then you can see it zeroed out all of these values. And our new pivot point is down here, which is where we want it. And then all we need to do is go to Top View, go to Face Mode by pressing 3, press A to select all the faces, and then select the Spin tool over here. Left mouse click on the plus, and then hold down left mouse button and rotate the mouse in a circular fashion. And let go once you're about here. And then down here, we're going to set the angle to 360. And then we're going to increase the steps. And we need 40 steps to get the same amount of duplicates. Make sure Auto Merge is turned on. And with that, we can rotate out of it. And then Alt-H to bring everything back. Let's check what that looks like rendered. So let's go to the rendered view. Give it a second to update, and yeah, that's looking okay. I think the normals might be inverted on this guy. So let's go back to Solid and bring up the Shading and Overlay pie menu and turn on Face Orientation. And as you can see, yep, the normals on these are inverted. So go to Face Mode again, press A to select everything, and then Alt and N to bring up the normals menu, and then flip. And now the normals are facing in the same direction. And then bring up the Shading and Overlay pie menu again, and turn off Face Orientation. If we go back to rendered mode, it should look a little bit better with the bevel that we're getting here. And yeah, it does. So we're getting a smooth bevel here on top. The only area where we're not getting a bevel yet is between these two pieces, and that's because they're separate pieces, they're not merged. So I can still hide this piece. As you can see, yeah, we have basically two different pieces. And if we want to bevel between them, we need to join them. So select the big circular piece and select the detail piece, and then Ctrl J to join them, and then give the renderer a second to update. And you can see we are now getting a bevel between these pieces. And if we're too close, it's actually not super visible. And later on, another thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to go in and create a new material with a smaller bevel value on this piece so that the transition here is a little bit nicer. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. We are going to take care of that later. So Ctrl F to bring things back. And then another thing we can do is actually go to Material Preview, go to Top View, press F3, and let's add a bevel here in the center too. So Ctrl B, and then move your mouse to add a bevel. And that should make the shading here just look a little bit nicer. And let's just check. This is looking good. This is looking good too. And I think for now we are almost done with the top piece and can continue to focus on the handle next. So let's work on the handle for the body. And to do that, let's isolate these two reference planes. So press Ctrl F. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a cube that matches the dimensions of the handle, and then we're going to use Quick Pipe on the border edges of that cube to create the handle, and you will see how that works in a second. Let's go to Top View first, Shift A, Mesh, and then Cube to create a cube, S to go to Scale mode, and then hold down Shift if you need to be precise, and just scale it down, and match the center lines here. And then we're going to go to Move mode, hold down middle mouse button to constrain on the Z-axis and move it up. And let's actually go in here, press F3, press G to go to move mode, hold down middle mouse button, move it up, left mouse button to confirm, line it up here, and then go back. And then we want to go and select these front faces by going into face mode by pressing 3. And then you can see I'm still in spin mode. So make sure to go back to select box X-ray mode and then select the front face, press G, move that forward to like right around here. And then what we're going to do is actually do Control A, apply all, and then select this front face. And let's actually type in a value here. Let's use 0.87267. And for the top face, let's use a Z value of 1.2744. And with these values in place, what we're going to do is work on the shape a little bit more. So select this front edge here, press Ctrl B to bevel, and then select these two edges and do bevel on these as well. And then go to top view, go to vertex mode, and select these vertices here in the back, press G, move them to match the line here in the center, go to edge mode, select these two edges, Ctrl B to bevel, line it up here with the corner, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, left mouse button to confirm. And then you can see we're starting to get a shape. You know, here's how the handle is going to progress. And unfortunately, I don't have reference images from the left side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in some values for these points. And you can totally eyeball that, like you don't have to use the same values, but it's just easier if I type them in really quick. So this one is going to do 0.391 on the x-axis. And then the next one is going to be 0.535 on the x-axis and 1.2453 on the z-axis. And then for this one, we're going to do 0.7525 on the x-axis. And on the z-axis, we're going to use 1.15555. And then down here, we're just going to move this up to 0.97612. And then you can see we're starting to get a better curvature. So let's actually bring back the rest of the body so that you can kind of see what's going on. So this edge will be where the pipe is going to be created. And you can see we need to refine the curvature. Like I was saying, you don't need to use the exact same values. You can just try to eyeball this shape here. Just make sure that the edge here isn't like underneath the surface. So to refine the shape some more, we're going to use the insert edge loop command from Edge Curve Plus. So this one is cool because you can just select one edge and it's going to do an edge ring selection and add a subdivision, and it's going to respect the curvature of the surrounding edges. So just click on Insert Edge and you can see it's giving you an edge, and we can also select these two and do Insert Edges, and then you get two subdivisions, and then do the same down here. Let's do Insert Edges, but this time we're going to use a tension value of 220, and then we are going to just select these three, do Insert Edges, and just do one subdivision. And then you can see we are getting a nice curvature. And then next what we want to do is select all of these faces here, and then we want to do a border edge selection based on this selection. Now, if you go to KeyKit, there is a select boundary plus active. So if you left click that, it will convert your selection to border edges. And what I like to do is I like to actually add that to the quick favorites. So if you click right mouse button and then click on add to quick favorites, you can now press Q on your keyboard, go down to quick favorites, and then you have the select boundary plus active option accessible from quick favorites. So that's all it is. And yeah, with these edges selected, let's deselect the one here in the bottom, and then we can start running QuickPipe next. So let's use QuickPipe to create the pipe. Control F3 for the search menu, and then type in QuickPipe, and then left click on it to confirm, and then you can move the mouse left and right to change the thickness. So let's just choose something like this and put it in place. Cool thing about QuickPipe is it's non-destructive, so you can deselect it and select it again, and then press Q, and then you can click on Adjust Curve, and that brings up a menu, and if you press H, you can toggle the menu, and then it lists all the commands down here. You move the mouse left and right to make it thicker or thinner. You can move the mouse wheel up and down to add more profile subdivisions. So I'm going to move it until it says Profile 4 at the bottom of my screen. And then what I want to do is I also want to change the width to maybe something around 0.12. And if you want to cycle through the different options, you can, for example, press S to toggle between smooth and flat shading, or you can press C to turn on cyclic, or you can press F to look at the different fill modes. Basically, the help menu explains everything that you need to know. The basic functionality is just that. You select a bunch of edges, run the script, and it will create a nice pipe based on that. So with this, let's actually Alt-H to bring everything back. And then let's just take a look at this from the top. Press F3, and then adjust the thickness here. So Q, adjust curve, and then make sure we are matching that thickness. And right now, this is actually a curve object, so it's not a polygon object. So if we are happy with all of this and we don't want to change it anymore, we can just press Q and then convert to, and then click on Mesh from Curve. And once you do that and press Q again, you can see we can't access those options anymore. And then what we're going to do next is just some house cleaning. So Control R to add a subdivision here. And let's just delete the right side. We don't really have to do that, but it's just a little cleaner. And then in top view, you can see that these edges aren't lined up, which, it's not that big of a deal, but I kind of want it to be clean. So let's line them up. And then what we're going to do is rotate out of that, shortest path selection, and we're going to do a smart ring selection, and then loop tools, and then we're going to do space, and that spaces out the geometry evenly, and we have our curve back. And then also we want to just add a face here, so right mouse button N, and then just Alt X and mirror it over, and Q, add modifier, apply modifier, or just apply down here if you want. And that should be a great base for putting more work into the handle. So next I'm going to model this diamond pattern from the grip. And what I've done for this tutorial in general is I am giving you a kitbash file that contains a couple of pre-made objects that you can just import into your Blender file, so that you don't have to spend a ton of time on repetitive tasks. And modeling this diamond pattern is definitely a repetitive task. So I'm going to show you the general approach, how you would do something like that. But then I'm also going to give you the file or the pre-made object so that you don't have to spend a lot of time going through all the steps. So in general, modeling a diamond pattern like that is actually pretty simple. You can just start with a cube, scale this down a little bit, rotate it 45 degrees. And then we're just going to do an inset here on the top, and we can move this up. And so now we have one diamond element, and then we can just duplicate this over, set this to active, and then we're just going to make our pattern kind of like this. And then you would duplicate it up. And again, there's no need for you to actually do that right now, because I'm going to give you a final version of this, but I want to show you how to do something like that in case you wanted to do it from scratch. So there we go. That's the base approach, and then you can just go ahead and kind of, let's actually join all of these pieces together. Control J, and now we can duplicate this over, and do something like this. So we would just model the whole thing out, and then we can rotate that on the y-axis 90 degrees. Apply all, move to 0. And then we can add a simple deform modifier. So deform, simple deform, and then you would just set this to bend, set the angle to 360, and then we just need to find the right axis, which is the y-axis. And then, so basically, if you do 360, you need a bigger pattern. So, you know, if we duplicated this one more time, something like this, and let's do the simple deform again. The bend modifier, and there we go. And that's basically how you would start constructing something like that. And you just have to find kind of like the right spacing, and that takes a little bit of time, and I don't want you to have to spend a ton of time on it. So what I've done is I've prepared a file for you. So you can go to File and then Append. So we're going to add an object from another Blender file into this blend file. So go to File, Append, and then you want to navigate to the kitbash.blend file that comes with this tutorial. It will be in a folder called blender_files, and you will find the kitbash.blend file in here. So navigate to that file and then double click on it. And then you see the folder structure of the file, and you want to go into the object directory. And then there's a couple of objects in there, and the one that we're looking for is called hand_grip. So if we add that by clicking append, once we click append, you will see the hand grip will show up in our scene, and it does. It's right here, which is great. So it's just a pre-made version of this object, so you don't have to go through the pain of modeling it out. And let me undo that and move it back. And then what we're going to do is we can just extrude faces along normals, kind of like bring this in a little bit, something around here. And then we're going to do SY, scale this in, and there we go. Here's our grip. So if we go to material preview, go to the top view, and then you can see here's what we got. Model this out, and it matches the reference pretty much perfectly. So that's that. And I'll be doing a lot more of the appending in general. Later on in the tutorial, I have a lot of objects for you that you can just add to your scene, and it's just going to save you some time so that you don't have to over and over do repetitive modeling tasks where you're not going to learn a lot from. I really want you to get the most out of this tutorial, and hopefully having this kitbash file helps with that. So let's finish up the handle. Let's bring back in the reference planes and set this to material preview. And let's just look at the handle and this piece maybe. And then here we can see that it just tapers out here at the bottom. What I want to do though is I want to add a subdivision here. And then we're going to move this up and snap it here. And snap this to the top so that the vertices are actually aligned. And then do this again and snap it. And then let me just select this, press P to detach, Shift H to hide, and then right click and N to create a new face. And let's do the same thing here for the top to close this off. And now we have two pieces. And then what we want to do is we want to look at this, look at the left view, or actually look at the right view, and turn this to wireframe, move this here, and then select these down here, go back to right view, Control B, press C to turn on clamping, and then use the mouse wheel to add a couple of subdivisions. Maybe something like this. Left mouse button to confirm. Go to vertex mode, A to select everything, M to merge, and then by distance. And that has merged this vertex here at the center. And there we go. And then we don't need this piece anymore, so let's just delete that. And then we can go in here, Shift Q, assign material, and do the blue for now, and maybe for this one do the red. And then we can switch to rendered mode really quick. And then we should get a bevel here where we have these two separate pieces. Yep, there we go. Let me actually check. Yep, this all looks good. So we don't need to be in render mode any longer. And let's do these details here that we're still missing and keep going. Let's select these two pieces here. And then we're going to do this bevel next. So first go to top view, select these vertices to see where the center is. And then we can maybe select all of these. Control B to bevel. Just move up the mouse and lock this in. There we go. And then if we wanted to, we can mark sharp. And let's see what that looks like. Right view. Actually go to left view. Go into wireframe, and for me that's close enough. Doesn't need to be perfect. And then we have the same thing here on the side, and we just need to figure out how we're going to do that. So what we're going to do is select these faces here, Shift H to hide, Control R, and then two subdivisions, and then S, and constrain on the Z axis and move this up. Alt H to bring everything back. Control F to isolate. And then go to right view or go to left view, F3. And then see that we get the right distance. S and then Z to constrain. Bring this in. And then we can probably just, you know what, we can just add a subdivision here and then delete these faces. And then we're gonna right-click N, right-click N, right-click N, and there we go. Here's our detail. And to flip this, Alt-X, mirror it over, Q, add modifier, apply modifier, and then Control F to bring back the rest. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to delete these two other pieces, and we're going to do Shift D, R, Z, hold down Control, Shift D, R, Z, hold down Control, and there we go. Here's our detail pieces, and yeah, that's looking pretty good. So let's add a little detail piece on top here so that we can kind of like mimic this effect down here. So Shift H to hide these, select these two edges, Control B to bevel, press C to turn on constraints, left mouse button to confirm, and then we're just going to snap these vertices like this. And then what I want to do is I actually want to take these edges and align them on the top, and then Shift H to hide everything. Let's get rid of these faces. Let's select these edges, E to extrude, middle mouse button to constrain, Alt A, and then we can merge these. And that actually went wrong. Let me undo. So merge it like this. Alt H to bring everything back. Let me hide the reference planes by pressing Shift 2. Snap this vertex here, and now we've cleaned this up. And now all that's left to do is just make a new face by pressing N, and then we can do J to manually connect these if we wanted to. We also could have used the bridge tool, which would have been faster. And let's delete these faces. And then you can see in here, this ring we actually don't need anymore. So let's delete it. Alt H to bring everything back. And you can see it's getting kind of confusing at this point. Like we have so many pieces, we don't really even know what piece is joined, what piece is separated. And there's a cool way to actually see what's going on. Let's go back to flat shaded and then click here on shading and then set this to random. And if you set it to random, then each object that's its own object just gets assigned a random color. And now you can kind of see what's going on, where your individual pieces are. And what we want to do is every once in a while probably toggle between this mode, and object works fine as well. Also on that note, while we're in here, if you want to use a matte cap, you can just switch the lighting to matte cap here and then choose from different matte caps if you're curious what the shading of your object looks like. So here, for example, we can see sharp edges better. So what we're going to do is select everything, press M to merge by distance, and then we can just select these guys, right mouse button, mark sharp, and this one we can set to clear sharp. And let's see what our auto normal value is. It's 30. Maybe set this to 35. We don't need to really worry about this right now. Check if everything is good here. Yep. So what I want to do next is, now that we know about the matte cap stuff, let me actually switch this back. And I can either duplicate this object around so that we don't have to worry about the issue of this piece missing on the other edges. And I guess we can do that next. So let's just find the center, which should be here for this piece. And then we can do Alt-X to mirror over, add modifier, apply modifiers, Alt-G to select everything else. And then again, Shift-D to duplicate, RZ, hold down Control, put it in place, Shift-D, RZ, hold down Control, put it in place, and then Control-J to join, 1, A, M by distance, and there we go. Everything is merged, and we have just propagated these pieces to the rest of our object. Okay, next let's focus on the interior of the top piece. So let's take a look. We need this face up here. Actually, let's hide this guy. So we need these two, Control F. Let's press F3 to go into wireframe and then go to bottom view. And then what we're going to do is just take the center face here. I'm going to do an inset, then another inset, and another inset, and just trace these outlines. And then Control Q to grow, P to separate by selection. Let's rotate out. And F3 to turn off wireframe. And then we want to select these edges here. Press G, move them down. And then we're gonna give them a slight bevel here, so Control B. And then the center here, we're just gonna extrude in. And then Shift D to duplicate that face, P to separate by selection. And then the same here. Let's actually see what this face is supposed to look like. Let's go to the bottom view, do a super tiny inset, rotate out. F to focus, and then you can bring this down. Actually press G and then middle mouse button to constrain, extrude, and then right mouse button N to make a new face. Alt H to bring everything back, Shift H to hide this. We actually just need to extrude these edges here, and then we can do right mouse button N to make a new face. Alt H to bring everything back. And I think I want to line up this with here. So let's just snap this, and that should give us the base of what we need for this top piece here. And then we can start working on the frame pieces. Let's hide these two pieces in the center and focus on the walls. Walls, just like the other stuff, is going to be 3 pieces. You can see piece 1, piece 2, piece 3. And what we're going to do is we're going to identify where these cut lines are, and the cut lines are here. So go to wireframe, go to bottom view, go to face mode, and then we can do a ring selection, Control Q to grow, X to delete. Actually, Control Q one more time, X to delete. Same here, X to delete. Turn off wireframe mode. And there we go. Here are our pieces. P to separate. Let's take this and let's actually move this up so that it's the same, and then we can get rid of this. Right mouse button N to make a new face. And then again, go to wireframe mode, go to bottom view. And let's select some of these edges that we need to make the bevel. So let's go all the way around. And then what we're going to do with these edges selected, we can do Control B to bevel. And then we're just going to kind of like eyeball it. It doesn't need to be perfect. So maybe something like this. And then go to vertex mode. Join these edges up here. Join these edges up down here. Let's get out of wireframe mode, and then we can delete this one. And we can also delete this one. And then what we can do is clean up these edges here a little bit. And that's good. Don't have to worry about this because this is the high poly. And triangles are perfectly fine in general anyways. Let's also select this up here, extrude this up. Maybe something like this, and select these edges, extrude them as well. Line this up M by distance. And then what we can do is mirror this. So let's just go to rotate mode, constrain on the Z axis, move this 30 degrees, Control A, apply all to reset transformations, Alt X to mirror, mirror it over, apply modifiers, and go back to wireframe mode, go back to bottom, rotate, hold down Control, and bring this back in place. And now we have these pieces here, and we can kind of like focus on this element next. Let's focus on these pieces here. So let's just select the center edge here so that we know where the center is. Actually grow selection and go to faces. And then we can turn off wireframe mode and then deselect these top ones. Deselect the bottom ones, and then Alt E, extrude faces along normals, move this in, and then -0.145, and then we can do Control R here, delete this, delete that, and then we can also get rid of this edge here again because we don't need it anymore. And maybe select this edge by double-clicking, press G twice to slide along the surrounding geo, and just move this over to make it a little thicker. And then what we're going to do is select these faces, Shift H to hide, Control R to cut, Alt H to bring everything back. Same here, Control R to cut, Alt H to bring everything back. And do the same with these top ones. Control R, and you'll see why in a second. Let's select these edges here, and then Control B to bevel, just to get some detail. And then what I want to do is select these, Shift H, Control R, and we're going to mirror this over, so we're not going to have to worry about this being perfect or anything. Alt E, extrude faces along normal. Actually, delete these guys. Delete these guys. Just extrude upwards. Snap here. And then we can just right mouse button N to make a new face. Same here, right mouse button N to make a new face, and N to make a new face. And then we can join this. And let's do like a similar thing up here. Shift H, Control R, Alt H, delete this. Let's go to solid, it'll be a little bit easier to see what's going on. Extrude upwards, go to edge mode, align to top, select these surrounding edges, N to make a new face, same here, N to make a new face, N to make a new face, J to join. There we go, we now have some detail. And now we just need to mirror it over. And to do that same thing, R to go to rotate mode, Y to constrain, Z to constrain on the Z axis, rotate 30 degrees, Control A, apply transformations, move the pivot here, Alt X to mirror it over, and there we go, apply modifiers, and then we can move it back, but since we moved the pivot, it doesn't rotate from here, so Control A, so we need to move the pivot back to 0, 0, 0, so Shift S, and then we can do object origin to cursor, since this is here in the center, and then R, Y, hold down Control and rotate that 30 again, and then all we need to do is Shift D, R, Z, hold down Control, move this over. Actually, we can do R, Z, and then 60. Shift D, R, Z, 60. Sorry, I was wrong there. Shift D, R, Z, 120. Shift D, R, Z, 120. And now we've copied this around. Let's go to rendered mode. Turn off wireframe. Give it a second to calculate. And there we go. Get some nice detail. Not super visible, but let's hide this plane here. And then we could also do Shift A and then light, point light. And give it a second to calculate. And then you can see we have some nice detail down here. And we'll tweak all of this later on, but I just wanted to get the geometry in place. We can go back to solid. Turn on wireframe if we want to. And yeah, there we go. We have to do the same treatment for the bottom part of the inside of the bot. So let's take a look at the pieces that we need. Turn on material preview. Hide this one here. Actually, hide the outer piece, and then we need this inside one and this for reference. Shift H. Actually, let's do Control F to use machine tools to isolate. Be easier to work with. And then we can separate this. Select the outer edge here, press E to extrude, hold down middle mouse button to constrain on the Z axis, and then make sure we don't penetrate down here too much. I guess we actually need to, which is fine because we're going to take the edge here, extrude this as well, and snap this. And then let's go back and see actually, what's going on, go to top view, wireframe, and now we can do some work. Want to make sure to only select the top face. Actually, I guess I can Control F this for now. And then let's select the top face. Do a little inset, top view, wireframe. Scale this in, actually just this inner piece. Another inset. Scale this in. Rotate out of here, F to focus. Extrude downwards, make sure to hold down middle mouse button to constrain. And commit, back to top view, F to focus. Inset again, and F to focus again, and we're gonna extrude this out, hold down middle mouse button, go to vertex mode, and then we can do a little bevel here. And let's take a look at our reference. I think that's pretty much it. I guess we could just ever so slightly scale this in to get a little bit of a bevel here that catches the normal map. Same here, ever so slightly scale this out. And bring this in and maybe extrude and give it like another little detail. I know that this is not in the reference, but might make it look more interesting. And then we also want to take this here and move this down, something like this. And then we can do Control F and take a look at some of these other pieces. Yeah, but I think that's looking good. And we can also start to cut away the pieces that we don't need for now. So something like this. And now we can start working on this piece here. Let's keep going with this. Take these edges and move them down. And then what we're going to do is right mouse button N to make a new face. And let's actually turn on wireframe, go to top view. And then you can see we want to have a little bevel here as well. There we go. And then next what we're going to do is just add a bevel here on the side. So maybe from here to here. See what that feels like. Looks like we don't need this edge down here, so let's try this again. Control B. Seems better. Let's look at it from the side, Control B. Bevel this all the way out till they almost overlap here. And then what we're going to do is just Alt 1 and Alt 1 to clean this up. And then also one thing I want to do is add two edges here. And then extrude faces along normal. Kind of like inside. Delete these guys here, and we're getting a little bit of a panel line here, which I like. So that's it for these elements. I don't think we can actually go all the way down here because it'll protrude our mesh and we don't need all these faces here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do Control R here. And join this up and get rid of this and get rid of these faces as well. Actually, let's undo that and let me just press G twice, move this over to clean this up a little bit, and then clean it up like this. And then same thing, RZ, hold down Control, 30 degrees, Control A, clear rotation, Alt X. Actually, I need to undo that because these are 4 pieces, so we need to do 45 degrees. So R, Y, and we're gonna do 45. And then we can do Control A and then apply rotation, Alt X, mirror this over, Q, add modifier, apply, and then same thing, move this back. And then we can do Shift D, RZ90, Shift D, RZ90, Shift D, RZ90. We could work with instances here if we wanted to, but I don't think I'm gonna make a ton of changes, so I'm not gonna go through the hassle. And then we're gonna append another mesh, so file append. And you wanna go to the kitbash blend file again, go to objects and then inside detail bottom. And then you wanna append that one. And that's just a little detail up here. And let's actually go in here, Control R to find the center. And select these guys, Alt S to center pivot, G, Z to constrain on that axis, hold down Control and center it out, and then we can get rid of that edge again. And that's looking good. And let's just assign the bevel medium to it. And we could also merge these. I mean, we do have to merge these if we want to see a smooth transition, but I'm not going to worry about this for now. Let's just switch it to rendered. See what it looks like, give it a second to calculate. Yeah, it's looking pretty decent. Let's add another point light. So we're getting some nice highlights here on the edges, some nice detail. I like the way that these things catch the normals. It's always good to work with this type of detail that kind of like breaks up the surface and gives you like a 45-degree angle compared to most of the surface. Like that's gonna bake really well and look really nice in our normal map. Control F. Let's see if we're protruding anywhere, and doesn't look like that's the case right now, which is good. So yeah, there we go. That was the bottom piece. So let's keep going and let's actually get rid of this cutter object here. We don't need it. And what I want to focus on is this piece here. So I want to carve in that hole where the leg's gonna sit later and then do the ball joint down here. So if we look at this, we need a hole for the ball joint and we need a hole for the leg. And the hole for this leg is just a box that we could manually trace using the modeling techniques that I've already shown you. But in order to save time, we're just gonna append a cutter file. So go to your kitbash blend file and select the leg cutter object. So just select that. And then you want to make sure to select the cutter object first, and then select the base object, and then Control- to Boolean that piece. And that just used hardops to make that Boolean. And you can see it sits nicely here in the surface. There's a little bit of space down here. So just make sure this is working out for you the same as it is for me. If your mesh is slightly different, just adjust it so that this makes sense. And then once we're happy with this, we're going to select the base object, Q, add modifier, apply modifier, and then we can get rid of this piece. And then we can also take a look here and maybe clean this up just a tad. So just press J here to join these two pieces and do the same on the other side. And there we go. Let's also take a look here. You can see that there's a little detail that we have. So let's actually do that really quick. So we basically just need a little box here, and then we can carve that in, I guess. So what we can do is Shift S to select it to move the active cursor here, and then Shift A, just going to add a cube, and then it adds the cube at that position. and then go to wireframe mode here, select the cube, move that up, and just scale it up so it kind of like matches this detail piece here. There we go. And F3 to go out of wireframe mode. And then let's actually separate this to make it two different objects. And then what we can do is same as before, select this one, shift select that one, control minus to do the Boolean. And there we go. And then we're going to do Q, add modifier, apply modifier, and delete this piece. And then center the pivot here, Alt X, mirror it over, add modifier, apply modifier. And now we have added that detail. And if we do Control F to bring everything back, we can see that that's sitting on this mesh nicely, and that should give us a nice little detail. Also, I think if we look at these guys have some detail here that we could add if we wanted to. Or we could copy this piece around, but before copying this piece around, let's make sure we have all the booleans and all the details done. So let's not do that right now, but actually focus on the detail on these pieces. So let's take a look. Let's actually isolate that one, and then we can go into the top view and kind of get a feel for where the center is. Looks like the center is here. We can also rotate that if we wanted to. So just rotate that 60 degrees to have it in the center. And now we know exactly where the center is, and then we can kind of select these pieces here. And then let's also select the corresponding edges at the bottom. Just shift and left click to select them. And then we can do bevel, Control B, move the mouse out, find the value that we like, something like that, and leave it at that. And I guess we can also select these edges and mark sharp. Do the same up here. Mark sharp so that we're getting the hard edges here. And then Alt H to bring everything back. And then let's not forget to actually rotate this over again, 60 degrees. And let's take a look at our reference. And that's actually looking pretty decent. It's not exact, but we don't need to be super exact. It doesn't matter if we're off a couple of centimeters. So anyway, let's copy this piece around just to like propagate the detail. Shift D, R, Y to constrain on the Y-axis, 120. Shift D, R, Y, 120. Sorry, I messed that up. So let's do it again. Shift D, R, and then Z, and let's do 120. That's the wrong location again. So R, Z, 120. There we go. So there we are. Let's hide our reference. Take a look at this. Go to rendered mode. Give it a second to calculate. And yeah, as you can see, we're getting some nice highlights here, which is cool. And this is starting to look more interesting as well. So very nice. Let's keep going. Next, we're going to do the hole for the ball joint. So if we go to Material Preview and take a look at this, you can see we need a hole for this joint here. And if we wanted to manually do it, you can just put the active cursor or the 3D cursor here and then Shift A, Mesh, Quad Sphere, and then scale it down. But that's actually not what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring in another object again. But if you wanted to manually do it, just position it like I just did. But instead, I'm going to go to File and Append and save you that time and give you the leg ball joint object. And that's going to sit in the exact right position. And then we're going to do Boolean from this. So we're going to carve out this sphere from this piece. The downside here is that you can see that we have on this sphere, we have all these points that are ending in this one vertex up here. And if we do Boolean, it's just going to create a bunch of extra vertices up here, which I don't want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees sideways to move this out of the way. So R, Y, 90, and then you can see now this is rotated, and then we can shift and select that, Control minus to do the Boolean, and then Q, add modifier, apply modifier. We can also get rid of the sphere for now. Excuse me. And then we can do some cleanup here in the geometry. So just go to wireframe mode, and let's actually do this here in the back first. So just clean these like straight lines up. They don't actually add anything to the silhouette. I'm gonna leave this. And then here, I guess we can merge this as well. That's really not much of a detail that we need. And I think that's okay. And we can just do a loop selection or a partial loop selection with all these pieces. And then we're going to do bridge. And there we go. We've bridged our edge loops. If you get triangles, you can also run the tries to quads after. That'll clean it up a little bit. But this is looking good. I'm pretty happy with what this shape looks like. There is a hole here, I guess, which, yeah, let's leave this in here. And we're going to do K. Actually, let me do that again. And then Alt-1. And then we're going to put the pivot here, Alt-X, mirror it over, and just like you already have done quite a few times. And that's it. That's the start for this piece, the socket for the ball joint, which is cool. And then we also need to do the same thing with this piece down here, and we're going to do that next. So next we're going to add the socket in that bottom piece. So File, Append, bring in another copy of the ball joint. And then just select the ball joint, select the body, Control minus to do Boolean, and then Q, add modifier, apply modifier. And then I want to do another cut that matches that line here and goes through the body, so that we have a panel line that goes from here to here and traces that line here. To do that, all I need to do is scale this up. And then what I'm going to do is select this object, select this, and then Control minus. And now you can see it carved all of this out and deleted that inner piece, but that's not what I want. So I'm going to set this to slash, and now it's keeping both pieces. It's keeping both the outer piece and the inner piece, which is great. And then what we can do is just scale this, and we can also look at it from the left view if we wanted to. It's actually not ideal, but yeah, scale this and just eyeball this and line up these two lines, and that's great. And then one thing though, if we just select this piece, you can see that the outline gets a little jagged. And in order to prevent that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to subdivide this surface here. So let's go in here, add modifier, and then just do subdivision surface. And once we do that, the Boolean will automatically update. So you can see that these edges are a lot smoother now, which is great. And since I'm happy with the shape, I'm going to do Q, add modifier, apply modifier, and here as well, Q, add modifier, apply modifier. And then I can get rid of this. And now you can see we have these two pieces that actually look pretty good. Now, one thing I have done is I forgot to actually, once I do the smooth, it shrinks the sphere a little bit, so the lines are not matching up again. So let's just undo. Go back a few steps and add the smooth modifier again. And then I can do another scale, hold down Shift to be more precise. Zoom in a little bit, S, hold down Shift to be more precise. There we go. And same process, select the space piece, Q, add modifier, apply modifier. Select the inner piece, Q, add modifier, apply modifier. And then I can get rid of the sphere. And now you can see if we go to rendered, we're getting a nice panel line here between these two pieces, which looks really cool. And we're getting a bevel here, and this all is shading really nicely. So I think that was successful. So let's keep going, detailing out this bottom piece. Okay, next we're going to add the socket to the body. So let's bring in another copy of the ball joint. So append it, and then remember we rotated it earlier, so RY90, and then select this guy, Control minus to do the Boolean, and then we can do apply modifiers to commit. And then what I want to do next is get a panel line that follows this line here and goes through the body. And that's easy to do, just Shift D to duplicate, right mouse button, S to scale up, and then select this piece, this one, Control minus, and it made a new Boolean, but you can see that it carved out this inner piece too. So let me actually undo. And what I want to do is right after I do the Boolean with Control minus, I want to set this to slash. And if I set this to slash, you can see that we are keeping both pieces. So we have both the inner and the outer piece. And now I can actually go in here, press S to scale, hold down Shift and try to line up these edges. And then one thing that I've noticed is, if you actually look at this from the left, we're starting to see a little bit of faceting and we're starting to see the polygons. So I do want to have a more rounded edge here. And one way to do that is to just subdivide this Boolean object so that it's more round and has more polygons. So go to your modifiers over here, click on Add Modifier, and click on Subdivision Surface. And once you do that, you can see it becomes smoother, which is great. And then we're going to do one last tweak. So S, hold down Shift, and try to line up these edges, and this is fine. And then we're just going to select these two pieces, Q, apply modifiers on both, and then we can get rid of these two. And if we go to rendered view now, you can see we have a nice panel line here, which is great. So next I want another panel line that is kind of like here, and we can just create a box and do new Boolean, or bring in the box that I've pre-made. So File, Append, and then body bottom line, and see this is just a big box. And then select the box on this piece down here, Control minus, and since we do need both pieces again, set it to slash, and then select both pieces and apply modifiers. So there we go, and then we can get rid of the box. Perfect. So let's take a look what else we want to do. Down here, let's actually press P on this face to separate it. Move this down, and then select these edges, press E to extrude and move them up. And then let's isolate these two pieces, Control F. Select this face here, go to top view, F3 to go to wireframe mode, I to do an inset, I to do another inset, line up these edges, rotate out, and then what we're going to do is just move this down, hold down middle mouse button to constrain, and bring back everything with Control F, and then we can just select these two pieces. And what we're going to do is go to the left view, Control F to isolate, wireframe, and then just move this up to line this up, and then maybe move this in a little bit. That looks good. So now we have that. Let's actually move this up a little bit, and then we want to extrude these inner edges upwards, and then select the two reference images, and then you can see that there's a detail here that we still haven't done. So let's look at the top view, go to wireframe mode, and let's take a look what's going on here. So is this actually the right piece? No, it's not. So Control F, I need this lower piece. Control F again, and now I can go to top view and wireframe view, and then let's just mark this edge here and this edge here. We don't want to go all the way. And then what I'm going to do is rotate out, press F3 to go out of wireframe view, and now I can just do a shortest path selection in between the two. Actually, let's make sure that we only have these bottom edges selected, and that's the case. Go to top view, Control B to do a bevel, and just move this out to something like this. And there we go, there's our bevel. And then get rid of this inner piece, or this inner face. And let's clean up this side over here. Alt-1. And then we can just do a mirror, add modifier, apply modifier. And I'm not going to worry about these vertices here. That's going to bake fine, so we don't actually need to clean this. So let's bring everything back. And then I want to add another panel line here. So right in the center here. So let's just mark these edges and delete them. And then let's go in here, delete this. And then I can do a mirror, apply modifier, select all of this by pressing Alt-G, X to delete. And then here, all I need to do is select these vertices, Alt-A to bring up the machine tools align, select top, right mouse button N to make a new face, same here, and same here. There we go. And since this needs to be duplicated on the Z-axis 3 times, so 120 degrees each times, we can do Shift-D, RZ 120. And you can see, since the pivot is here, it rotates it around the pivot. So let's delete it, Control-A, apply all, or we can just do location, that resets the pivot. And now we can rotate around that. Shift-D, RZ 120, Shift-D, RZ 120. There we go. Bring everything back. Let's go to rendered view, Shift-2 to hide our reference plane collection. Give it some time to update, and there you go. We have a nice panel line here, some nice detail down here. This is looking good too. Maybe actually bring this down just a tad. And then we need to clean up all of this here. So let's set this to material preview or solid. And basically this piece, we need to do the same thing. So since we know that the center is here, we can just select these faces, delete them, select the lower one, X, and then Alt-X mirror over, apply modifiers, Alt-G, or just, oops, I guess I did mess up just here, so let's undo really quick. So Alt-X, mirror over, Q, apply modifiers, there we go. Double click to select all of it, X to delete. And then we can clean this up. Let's see. Oh, I deleted a little bit too much. So let's just undo really quick. And let's make sure I'm actually selecting the right things. So I need this. And then I can do Alt-X, mirror this over, apply modifiers. And this should be better now. And I guess I can, let's see, how are we going to do this? We can just do an inset on this, select the vertices, press M, move to center, and then we can do Shift S to origin, actually Shift S and then move to cursor. And now it's centered at 0, 0, 0, and then we can select this face, Alt-A, bring it down to the bottom, and now we have this face here, Alt-X, mirror it over, apply modifiers, and now we can easily make a face here. But first we need to get rid of all of this here. It's probably a quicker way to do this, but just wanted to show you how I chose to do it. And then select these, extrude upwards. And then honestly, now that I'm thinking, let's actually undo this really quick. I actually don't want a panel line here. I only want the panel lines down here. So we can get rid of all of this. And then all we need to do is Shift-D, RZ120, Shift D, RZ120, merge these together, Control J, select everything, M by distance, select a low value, and that merges everything, and then select the top ring, N to make a new face, select the bottom ring, N to make a new face, and there we go. So that was a little much, I guess, but hopefully you still were able to follow. It's really simple modeling operations for the most part. You just have to get used to the hotkeys, and once you get that, you should be getting quicker and quicker every time you work with Blender. And then last but not least, let's rotate these. Shift D, RZ120, Shift D, RZ120. And we can also do the same thing for these guys. Shift D, RZ120. And here you can see it rotates around the pivot, which is not in the center. So Shift, Control A, location, Shift D, RZ120, Shift D, RZ120. There we go. Let's go to rendered view. Give it a second. Hide the reference planes collection by pressing Shift 2. And here you can see all the work that we've been doing. Got some nice panel lines here. This is matching up great on the inside. Yeah, really good looking. Pretty simple Boolean operations, like you saw. Nothing really fancy. Geometry is not the cleanest, but it doesn't need to be because we're going to use that for baking. And I know that a lot of people are saying, oh, triangles are bad, but actually, since we're not deforming this mesh, and since this is just a high poly, it doesn't really matter what the topology looks like. The only thing that matters is that it bakes correctly. And it will, even though it has these slight artifacts here. All right, I'm going to do some more work on the body, and I'm going to add more detailed pieces. So let's go to File, Append, and then we're going to do Detailed Pieces Body, O1. Bring these in, and as you can see, it's these elements here and down here. And next we're going to carve them into the body. It's pretty simple geometry. It's just box modeling with the techniques that you've already seen. Like make a box, bevel the edge, and then bevel the edge, and then do like a little Boolean operation. So nothing fancy here, nothing that you're really missing out on, and it's just going to save you a bunch of time. So what we're going to do is we need an object that we can carve into the body. So just select this bottom face, N to make a new face, P to separate by selection, and then we're just going to extrude that upwards. And then Shift A, Control A, location, Shift D to duplicate, R, and then Z120, Shift D, RZ120. And then all that's left to be done is join these back together. And now we have a piece that we can use to cut our base piece with. So select this, Control minus, and as you can see, we now have a hole for these pieces, and then we can do apply modifiers and delete these guys. And now if we go to rendered mode, should get some nice bevels here, which we are getting. There we go, and we're going to assign shader to these guys later, but for now, let's just keep going, and we need to take care of the pieces in here as well. So let's just go ahead and do so. And we're at a point where we need to start organizing our scene a little better so that we can start hiding and unhiding stuff. So let's actually get rid of these three. And then here you can see we actually don't need this top face from this bottom piece, so let's just delete it. And then I also have these guys here, which those are not necessary, I guess. And they're protruding into the inside of the mesh. So let's clean that up as well. Let's go through here and hide some of these pieces. And actually they're not protruding, so Shift D, RZ, and then here it's 90. Shift D, RZ, 90. Yeah, they're not protruding. It was just because I've deleted this piece. So this is fine. Okay. Let's just take a look at these guys. And then same process as at the top. Select the bottom, N to make a new face, P to separate by selection, extrude upwards. And then what we're going to do is select this, Control minus to Boolean. And here what I actually want to do is I want to move this outward. So I'm going to select these faces. And first what we're going to do is Shift S on this edge and then bring the cursor to selected. And now we can move these vertices along that cursor. So for me, I don't know if I actually have set up a hotkey for using the cursor. Yeah. So Shift Alt and 4. So you can see it changes to Transform Orientations cursor. And then if I press G, I can just move this outwards. And then you can see it respects the shape of this, which is great. And what we're going to do is we're going to Shift Control A location, Shift D, R, Z 90. That didn't work. Shift D, R, Z 90. Okay, that doesn't work because it's still set to cursor. So what I'm going to do is Alt, Shift, and 1 to change my settings. So now I'm using the global transform orientations instead of the cursor one, and I'm using the active element, or actually the median point, for my pivot point, which should be fine in this case. Let's do location again so that the pivot is here in the center, and then Shift D, R, Z 90, and there we go. Now it's working. Shift D, R, Z 90, and one more time. And now we can just select these guys. Control minus, Control minus, Control minus, and actually this one as well, Control minus. And then you can see we're getting this geometry here, which is great. And then I can just select these two, add modifier, apply modifier. And now that I've committed these changes to the mesh, I actually don't need this anymore. And as you can see, if I hide this, I'm getting all these nice cut-ins, which is great because if I switch to rendered mode now, I'm getting a bevel on this corner here. So see how we're getting like that nice bevel here, which is what I was looking for. I didn't want this to merge into the mesh. I wanted to look like it's actually a socket and it's been like inserted here, or inset, I guess. So let's switch back to solid. And then the last thing we need to do is also duplicate this piece again. Shift D, RZ90, Shift D, RZ90. One more time. And now I have 4 copies here, which is great. So there we go. Little tedious work and having to work in there with all that overlaying stuff. So let's actually start organizing our scene a little bit better. Okay, let's organize our scene a little bit. So we have our drone scene collection where right now a bunch of our geometry is in. So we're going to go in here and shift or left click on the first item and then shift left click on the last item to select everything. And then hold down left mouse button and just drag everything to the scene collection. And now nothing is in that drone collection anymore. Also, the cutters collection is something that Hardops creates every time you use it, so we might as well leave it, and the reference planes we still need. And then what we're going to do is create a bunch of new collections. So let's do 2 for now, and then we can do body top and left click body bottom, and you just right click here to add a new collection. And then what we're going to do is we're going to try to select everything that's going to go into the body top group. And you can see that these are one piece and these need to be separate pieces. So P to separate by selection. And then now we can select this. And actually maybe we leave these guys out. So all of this, we're going to move into the body top. And then let's bring back everything else. Let's select all the body bottom pieces, which I guess should be all of this. The point light we can leave outside, leave that to body bottom. And now if we turn off body top, we only see body bottom. If we turn off body bottom, we see nothing. And now it's just easier to switch. And remember the hotkeys, Shift and the number. So Shift 1 toggles the drone. There's nothing in there right now. Shift 2 toggles reference planes. Shift 3 cutters. Shift 4 body top. Shift 5 body bottom. And that's because this is first, second, third, fourth, and fifth collection. So Shift and then the number key will toggle those collections, which is good to know. And just a handy tool. And now we can more easily use hotkeys to kind of like hide the different objects. And we might as well go in here and do quick materials on these guys using Shift Q. And now we need body top, so Shift 4, Shift Q, there we go. And remember that the visibility of the collections overrides the hide and unhide commands. So if I hide everything that's in body top and then press Alt H or Shift H, it will only unhide the visible collections. It won't unhide the body top collection. So it respects whatever visibility setting you have set over here in the outliner, which is actually quite handy. And there we go. Let's keep working, and let's just hide reference planes, cutters, and body top using the hotkeys. And then we can focus on these pieces here. So we can just shortest path select these faces here, and then Shift H to hide them, K for the knife tool, cut that, press space, and then Alt A align to the top. And now we can move this down, hold down Control and snap it here at the bottom, and then Alt H to bring everything back. And then we can do an inset here, and maybe do something like this. And then we can do an P to separate by selection, H to hide this, select this, and then let's actually make a new face again, and then we can just do an extrude and extrude that inward. Now be careful to like not overlap these faces. So guess we can move them down a little bit. Something like this, and then just delete this. And Alt H to bring this back. And then we need to do the same thing here. Do an extrude. This time we're doing that inwards. Delete these back faces. And the reason why we're doing these extrudes is if we don't have the extrudes, the bevel shader will not generate a highlight here on the edge. And since we want that, we need to do the extrude. And then also maybe use the knife tool on these edges here. So K, left mouse button, and then press Z on the keyboard to turn on cut through, and then space to commit, Alt A to move to the top, and then we're gonna snap this here. And now we're kind of like organizing this a little bit, and then merge by distance to merge the vertices. And then what we can do is add maybe 4 subdivisions and then get rid of the middle 2. And then we can select these edges, Control B, do a nice little bevel here. And it looks like we need a bit more depth here. So let me delete this, go to face mode, extrude. And let's see, maybe something like this, and then we should be able to make a nicer looking bevel, like a thicker one, something like that. But now we need to be careful that these edges don't penetrate here in the back, which they currently do. So what we're going to do is just select all of this, delete this, and then let's make this smaller again. And here we can just press G twice to turn on the edge constraint, which means it will only move those edges based on the geometry around it. So just press G twice and then move it in, and that should give us get rid of the penetration. There's not a lot of space here, which is, I guess I should have modeled it a little bit different, but I feel like I've committed at this point. So let's go to rendered view, see what this looks like, and maybe do the blue material on this guy. And then yeah, we're getting a nice bevel here, which looks pretty good. Go to material preview again, and then we need to propagate those changes. Shift Control A location so that the pivot is in the center. Shift D RZ 120, Shift D RZ 120. There we go. We could work with instances with all of this, but I don't know, it doesn't take a lot of time to rotate stuff around, and I just don't like setting up the instances necessarily. Let's see what's going on here. I can see that, yeah, this is going to be a problem. So let's actually take another look here and maybe do an edge loop here, get rid of this, and then Shift D RZ 120. And just rotate these around. And now we're not getting penetration anymore here. Guess we can set these guys to auto smooth and shade smooth. Same here. And yeah, now we've got some detail here on the inside.